I want you to just, for a second, picture a scene. But I need you to strip away all the Sunday school imagery we usually get. Just look at the raw data.
Okay.
It is high noon. The sun is at its absolute peak brightness. And then, without a storm, without an eclipse, which we know is astronomically impossible during Passover, the lights just go out.
And we aren't talking about like a dimming effect here.
Yeah.
The text implies a heavy, suffocating kind of darkness. A void.
A void, exactly. And accompanying this darkness isn't just silence, it's geological trauma. You have these massive limestone rocks, formations that have been stable for millennia, suddenly just splitting open.
Right, and graves, which were designed to be sealed forever,
Yeah.
they're popping open like, I don't know, pressurized container.
If you just read that in a vacuum, you'd think you were reading a cosmic horror story. Or, the opening scene of some post-apocalyptic thriller.
But this is the historical record of a very specific Friday
Hmm.
in Jerusalem.
But here's the problem I have with the standard retelling. We always focus on the chaos, the special effects, if you will. But at the center of all this swirling darkness, the actual epicenter of the earthquake, is one man.
Yes.
And he's doing absolutely nothing. He's not commanding the elements. He isn't fighting back. He's just hanging on a Roman cross, beaten into, just unrecognizable meat. And he is silent.
That silence is the real anomaly, isn't it? Because the universe is screaming, the earth itself is shaking, but the creator of those things, he's gone quiet.
And that's the loop we're trying to close today. That's the mission for this timely word. We need to connect this terrifying silence in Matthew 27 all the way back to a moment centuries earlier where the same God couldn't stop talking.
From a burning bush, no.
From a burning bush, from a mountain, thundering his name as I am.
It's the transition from the roaring fire to the silent lamb. And to really get it, you have to look at three very different figures. A fugitive shepherd.
A man who lost his entire family in a single day.
And a prisoner who refused to defend himself in court.
So let's open the file. We are looking at the timely word on what we're calling the Bridegroom of Blood and the Silent King.
It's a collision of justice and mercy. We're really going to see what happens when God remains silent. And why that silence, believe it or not, might be the loudest thing he ever did.
Okay, so before we get into the physics of a burning bush or the legal proceedings of a rigged Roman trial, we have to set the stage. For anyone just joining us, feeling maybe a bit overwhelmed by the sheer scope of all this history, let's do a quick, a previously on segment.
Right, yeah. If this were a drama series, we're jumping into the final act. We need to remember the character arcs that brought us to this point.
First up, we have the leader. This is Moses. But we are not meeting him as the Prince of Egypt. Far from it.
Oh, very far from it. This is Moses at 80 years old. He's a washed-up fugitive. He spent 40 years living as royalty, right? And now he's spent another 40 years staring at the rear end of sheep in the desert.
He's basically in witness protection in Midian. He has completely failed at his life's mission, or at least what he thought was his mission.
He's a has-been.
Then we have the sufferer. That's Job.
Job is the archetype of the innocent man who just gets wrecked. This is a man who lost everything, his wealth, his health, his entire family, all in a single afternoon.
And we find him sitting in the dust, literally scraping his sores with broken pottery, insisting on his integrity while his friends just gaslight him, telling him, you must be wicked to suffer this much.
It's brutal.
And finally, the Savior. Jesus, the central figure for us today. We find him in Matthew 27, betrayed by a close friend, facing a completely rigged trial, and about to face the most brutal form of execution the Roman Empire ever invented.
So the mission of this timely word is to connect all these dots. We really want to try and uncover this multifaceted aspect of the Son's submission, the Father's really difficult plan, and the Spirit's power that ends up shaking the very foundations of the earth.
And practically speaking, for all of us, we want to understand what it means to stand on holy ground when you are surrounded by corruption. Because let's be honest, you look at the news cycle these days, the world feels pretty corrupt. It feels like the bad guys are winning and the good guys are just getting crushed.
And that feeling is exactly where this whole story begins. It begins with oppression.
So let's jump right into that first major contrast. We have to talk about identity. Who is this God, and why does he change his communication style so drastically? Let's go back to Exodus chapter 3.
Exodus 3 it's the foundational text for understanding who God is. Moses is at Horeb, the mountain of God.
Okay.
He sees the thorn bush. Now, we need to clarify something about this burning bush.
Okay.
In the Sinai Peninsula, bushes catch fire. It's hot, it's dry, Spontaneous combustion happens. That's not the
The
miracle.
text is specific, though. It says in verse 2 that the thorn bush was not consumed. It's burning, but it's not burning up.
Exactly. That's the point. It's a complete violation of thermodynamics. Fire requires fuel. It eats the wood to sustain the flame. Once the wood is gone, the fire dies out.
But this fire wasn't eating the wood.
No, it was self-sustaining. It was using the bush as a location, not as fuel.
Which is a perfect metaphor for what God is about to tell him, isn't it? But Moses, being, naturally curious, says, I must turn aside now and see this great sight.
And the moment he turns aside, the whole dynamic changes. God calls to him from the bush, Moses, Moses! And immediately a boundary is set. God says, do not come near here. Remove your sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground.
I've always found that phrase so interesting, holy ground. What makes dirt holy? It's not the soil composition. It's not like the dirt at Horeb had more, gold in it or something.
No, it's the radiation zone of the divine. Holiness, in the Hebrew sense, it means set apart or even heavy. The presence of this being is so intense, so weighty, that it literally changes the status of the dirt itself. And God introduces himself, not as some new deity, some local god of the mountain,
Right.
but as the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob.
So he's connecting Moses back to history, to his own lineage. But here is the key insight for our discussion today. Look at verse 7. God says, I have surely seen the affliction of my people and have heard their cry. This establishes God as a deliverer. He is active, he sees, he hears, he's coming down to do something about it.
This is so crucial. He isn't a passive observer in the sky. He's an intervener.
And then Moses asks the question that just changes human history. He essentially asks, who are you? If I go back to Egypt, who do I say sent me?
Which is a very reasonable question, by the way.
Totally reasonable, because in Egypt, they had a god for everything.
Precisely. The Egyptians had a transactional view of deity. You name the god to control the god. Ra for the sun, Happy for the Nile. If you just say, God sent me, that's like walking into a pharmacy and just asking for medicine.
You're going to ask which one?
Exactly. Which one? Moses wants a handle. He wants a name he can use.
And God gives him an answer that is almost a non-answer, Exodus 3:14.
I am, WHO,
Hi.
I am. Or sometimes just translated, I am.
Break that down for us, because to a modern ear, that sounds a little cryptic. We hear, I am, and we think, okay, cool, philosophical statement. But what does that actually mean in the context of the ancient world?
It's ontological dynamite. The name Jehovah, or Yahweh, it's derived from this Hebrew verb to be. God is basically saying, I am not like the gods of Egypt.
Okay.
They are created things, gods of the river, gods of the grain. They came into being at some point. I didn't become I am. It implies total self-existence.
So he doesn't depend on the universe.
The universe depends on him. He is the battery that powers all of reality.
So when he says I am, he's claiming to be the only thing in the universe that is like truly and fundamentally real.
He is the ultimate fact. Everyone else, you, me, Pharaoh, the sun, the stars, we are all contingent. We exist because something else caused us to exist. The I am has no cause. He is the eternal now.
Which implies absolute authority.
Total authority.
Yeah.
When he speaks, reality adjusts to his words, not the other way around.
Okay, so hold that image. This. Being of infinite power, thundering from a fire that doesn't need fuel, declaring that he creates reality just by existing, that is the picture of God in Exodus. Maximum power, maximum volume.
Right.
Now, I want to jump cut. Fast forward about 1,500 years. We're in a Roman governor's palace, and we have a man standing there who claims to be the same God.
But the visual couldn't be more different. We are in Matthew 27. Jesus is standing before Pilate.
Yeah.
Now, Pilate is a brutal pragmatist. He's not interested in theology. He's dealing with a potential riot.
And he looks at Jesus and asks this question, verse 11, are you the king of the Jews?
And Jesus gives this very clipped, very short answer. It is, as you say, it's an affirmative, but it's not a defense.
No, it's barely an acknowledgement. And then the accusations just start raining down. The chief priests, the elders, they are throwing everything at him. Sedition, blasphemy, probably tax evasion for all we know. They are screaming. And Jesus...
Verse 12 says, he answered nothing.
Nothing.
Not a word.
See, this frustrates me. Because if I'm innocent and someone accuses me of a crime that carries the death penalty, I am not staying quiet.
Of course not.
I'm hiring a lawyer, I'm shouting my alibi, I'm pulling up receipts. Silence in any court of law usually looks like guilt.
Or it looks like surrender. And Pilate is completely baffled by it. He actually asks him Don't you hear how many things they testify against you?
Hmm.
He's giving Jesus an out. He wants him to speak. He's handing him the microphone.
And verse 14 says he answered him, not even to one word. The Greek there is so emphatic, he didn't even make a sound.
Think about that contrast. The God who thundered, "I am," from the burning bush is now the man who answers not even to one word against his accusers.
Why? I mean, why shut down? You have the power to verbalize the universe into existence, but you won't say a single sentence to defend your own life. Why not call down fire on the governor's palace like you did on the bush?
Because he isn't there to win a court case.
He's there to lose one.
He's there to lose one. That's a great way to put it. It's the only strategy that works for what he's actually doing.
And what is he doing?
This brings us to that multifaceted nature of the Son. He has the power to speak. He proved that by creating the universe. But here, he chooses the submission of the Lamb. If he speaks, he vindicates himself. If he argues, he proves he is innocent, and by Roman law, Pilate has to let him go.
But if he goes free, we don't.
Exactly. He has to submit to the false verdict to take the place of everyone who has ever been guilty. He is consciously moving from the I am of authority to the I submit of the sacrifice.
He is the I am choosing to become the I submit.
Yes, and this leads us directly into this next big contrast, the difference between a reluctant prophet and a willing substitute. Because if you look at Moses back in Exodus 4, he was not exactly thrilled about this new job assignment.
Oh, Moses is the king of excuses in Exodus 4. He is literally arguing with a burning bush. This is a guy who just witnessed a miracle that defies physics, and his first response is, what if they don't believe me?
And then, I'm not a man of words. I'm slow of speech. He literally begs God in verse 13, please, Lord, send word by sending someone else.
He really did not want to go.
He has massive imposter syndrome. He is totally convinced he's the wrong guy for the job. And God has to provide these miraculous signs just to convince him. God asks him, what is that in your hand?
A staff, a stick, a piece of wood.
Right. And God tells him to throw it on the ground. It becomes a serpent.
And the text says Moses fled from it. He actually recoils. He runs away from his own staff.
Then God tells him to grab it by the tail, which, by the way, is the most dangerous way you could possibly pick up a snake. And it becomes a staff again.
Then there's the hand trick. Put your hand in your cloak.
It comes out leprous, white as snow.
Put it back in.
And it comes out restored.
These are signs of judgment and restoration. Power over nature, power over disease. But even with these signs, Moses still argues.
To the point where verse 14 says the anger of Jehovah was kindled against Moses. God gets angry. He eventually provides Aaron to be Moses' mouthpiece. But the point is, Moses is a reluctant leader. He has to be pushed, dragged, and convinced into saving the people.
Okay, now compare that reluctance to Matthew 27. Jesus isn't arguing. He isn't asking for a backup plan. He's standing there, fully aware of what's coming. And this brings us to one of the most intense dramas in the entire trial. The Great Exchange.
The Barabbas incident. This is absolutely crucial for understanding this timely word on substitution.
So it's the custom at the feast for the governor to release one prisoner. The crowd gets to choose. And the choice is between Jesus, who is called Christ, and a, quote, notorious prisoner named Barabbas.
Barabbas is a fascinating name. Have you ever looked at the etymology of that?
I haven't, actually.
So bar means son of in Aramaic, and Abbas is a form of father. So his name literally means son of the Father.
Wait, are you serious? So you have Jesus, the true son of the Father, standing next to a man named Barabbas, a violent, distorted son of the Father.
That's the choice. The choice is between the true son and the false one, between the Prince of Peace and a man of violence, a revolutionary.
And the crowd, they choose the violent criminal.
It's the wildest trait in history.
Yeah.
Pilate knows Jesus is innocent. Verse 18 is explicit. He knew it was out of envy that they handed him over. And then you get this bizarre little interlude with Pilate's wife.
Oh, I love that detail. It's in verse 19. She sends a message to Pilate right in the middle of the trial. Have nothing to do with that righteous man, for I have suffered much today in a dream because of him.
Think about the spiritual implication there for a second. The high priests, the men who study the Torah all day long, are spiritually blind. But a pagan Roman woman, who is probably deeply superstitious, receives a supernatural revelation in a dream.
The universe is screaming, he is innocent, through a Gentile woman's nightmare.
Yes, but the religious leaders, they persuade the crowds to ask for Barabbas.
And when Pilate asks, what shall I do then with Jesus, they just shout, let him be crucified.
And here's the deepest irony. Pilate washes his hands trying to claim innocence, but the people, verse 25 is just chilling. And all the people answered and said, His blood be upon us and upon our children.
That sends a shiver down my spine every single time I read it.
It should, because in Exodus, blood was a sign of judgment on the Nile, on the oppressors. Here, the people are calling down judgment on themselves. They are taking full responsibility for the death of the innocent.
And they have no idea that this very blood they're demanding is the only thing that can actually redeem them.
They're cursing themselves with the cure.
Speaking of blood, there's a very, very strange connection to Exodus here that we have to talk about. The Bridegroom of Blood, because if you think the Barabbas story is intense, Exodus 4 gets downright weird.
It's one of the most obscure and jarring passages in the entire Bible. It's the kind of story that usually gets edited out of the children's Bibles.
So, set the scene for us.
Exodus 4:24. Moses is finally on his way to Egypt. He's got the staff. He has his wife Zipporah and his sons with him. He is finally obeying God. He's doing the right thing. And suddenly at a lodging place, some kind of inn, it says, Jehovah came upon him and sought to put him to death.
Okay, stop right there. God just spent 3 chapters convincing this guy to go. He gave him superpowers. He promised to be with him. And now, while Moses is on the road obeying him, God attacks him. It sounds like a bipolar deity. What on earth is happening?
It does seem incredibly contradictory on the surface, but you have to look at the context of the covenant. Moses is going to be the deliverer of God's chosen people, but he has failed to keep the sign of the covenant circumcision with his own son.
So he's a hypocrite.
He's negligent. He has an unholy loose end. He is trying to lead God's people into the covenant while his own house is standing outside of it. He was trying to do God's work without God's mark. And God is showing him in a terrifying way that being the leader is dangerous. You cannot approach the holy God with unholy negligence.
And the resolution is, it's graphic.
It is incredibly graphic. Zipporah, his wife, grabs a flint knife, basically a sharp rock, and circumcises their son right there on the spot. And then she touches the foreskin to Moses' feet.
And she says, surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me.
It's primal. It's bloody. But the mechanism is what matters for us today. The wrath of God was coming for Moses. What stopped it?
The blood.
The shedding of blood. The judgment was diverted from Moses because the blood was spilled. Zipporah understood the transaction. Blood pays the debt of death. She calls him a bridegroom of blood because that act, that blood, literally saved their marriage and his life.
It's a protection mechanism.
Exactly. Now, keep that blood protects from death idea in your head. And look at what happens in Matthew with the field of blood.
This is where Judas tries to give the 30 pieces of silver back.
Right. 30 pieces of silver, the price of a slave. Judas is full of regret. He throws it into the temple. And the priests, the very same guys who just rigged a trial to murder an innocent man, they suddenly get very scrupulous about the rules.
They say in verse 6, it is not lawful to put them into the temple treasury, since it is blood money. The irony is thick enough to choke on.
I mean, they're worried about the ceremonial cleanliness of the coins while their hands are metaphorically dripping with the blood of God. But look at what they do with it. They buy a field, the potter's field, to bury strangers in.
So in Exodus, the blood saves the leader. Here, the price of the leader's blood buys a graveyard for outsiders.
It's a hint of the scope of this death. The blood of Jesus isn't just spilling onto the pavement in Jerusalem. It is purchasing a resting place for those who don't belong, the strangers. It's the first sign that this death is going to cover people who are way outside the inner circle.
That is a powerful perspective. The blood isn't just a horror show, it's a transaction.
Precisely. And that brings us directly to the suffering.
Hmm.
We mentioned Job earlier. Job is the archetype. He's the poster child for the innocent sufferer. In Job 27, he makes this incredibly bold declaration.
He does. In verse 5, he says, until I die, I will not put away my integrity from me. He is holding fast to his righteousness. He swears by God, who has taken away my right. He feels abandoned, but he knows he hasn't done anything to deserve this.
Job is clinging to his own record. He's basically saying, I am good, so why is this happening to me? And then later in that same chapter, Job describes the fate of the wicked man. He lists all these terrible things that happen to the ungodly.
Yeah, verse 22, God hurls at him and does not spare. And verse 23, men clap their hands at him and hiss him out of his place. It's a picture of total rejection and public mockery.
Now, hold that image of the wicked man being hissed at and mocked. And let's look at Jesus in Matthew 27, starting at verse 27.
The soldiers take Jesus into the praetorium. They strip him. They put a scarlet robe on him, a mockery of royalty. They weave a crown of thorns and just jam it onto his head. They put a reed in his hand like a fake scepter.
And then they kneel before him and they say, rejoice, King of the Jews. They spit on him. They take the reed and they start beating him on the head with it. This is the hissing and the clapping that Job described.
But wait a minute, Job said this happens to the wicked. Jesus is the perfectly righteous one.
That is the twist that just breaks your heart. Jesus, the only truly righteous one, the only one who could legitimately claim the integrity Job was talking about, is voluntarily entering into the experience of the wicked. He's being swept away by the storm. He's being hissed out of his place.
The logic of the mockers in Matthew 27:42 is so frustrating, so twisted. They say, he saved others, himself he cannot save.
It's meant as a vicious insult, but it is the most profound theological truth of the gospel. To save others, he could not save himself. If he comes down from that cross, we are all lost. If he stays, we are found.
So he has to choose.
He chooses to be the wicked man in Job's story so that we can be the righteous man.
They even quote scripture at him. They say, he trusts in God, let him rescue him now. It sounds exactly like Job's so-called friends.
Yeah.
If you were really good, God wouldn't let this happen.
It proves that they have a completely transactional view of God. Do good, get blessings. Do bad, get cursed. Jesus is shattering that entire transaction. He is the perfect one receiving the curse.
And this leads us to the climax. The moment where the transaction is finally completed. The darkness.
Verse 45, now from the 6th hour, darkness fell over all the land until the 9th hour. That's from noon to 3 in the afternoon.
We are right back where we started in the intro. The sun failing, the lights going out on history.
And out of that darkness comes the cry. Verse 46, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani.
My God, why have you forsaken me?
We have to pause here. This is heavy. I want you to notice the specific address he uses. Eli, my God. Throughout the Gospels, Jesus almost exclusively calls God Father.
Right, Father, I thank you. Father, the hour has come. Abba.
Always Father, but here, he doesn't say Father.
Why? That seems like a massive shift in their relationship.
Because in this one moment, he isn't being treated as the Son. He is standing in the place of the sinner. He is facing God as the judge. The intimacy is broken. In Exodus, God said, I will be with you. In Job feels like God is far away. But here, on the cross, the Son is truly, actually forsaken.
The connection is severed.
The unity of the Trinity is stretched to the absolute breaking point to encompass all of human sin. He is experiencing the hell of separation from God so that we never have to. He is taking the I am and experiencing I am not.
Wow. And immediately after this cry, we see the physical reaction. He yields up his spirit, and then bam, verse 51.
And behold, the veil of the temple was split in two from top to bottom.
We need to explain the veil. This wasn't a curtain like you might have in your living room.
No. Historical sources say the veil was massive. Some say 4 inches thick, 60 feet high. It was a heavy woven barrier designed to keep people out. It separated the holy place from the Holy of Holies, the place where the presence of the I am was understood to dwell.
And it tears from top to bottom.
Not bottom to top, as if a man tore it. From the top down. God tore it. The separation is over. The silence of the I am on the cross purchased permanent access to the I am in the temple.
And then the earthquakes. The rocks split.
And look at the centurion, a Gentile soldier, a man whose job is death. He sees the earthquake, he hears that final cry, and he says what the high priest couldn't bring themselves to say, truly this was the Son of God.
It's always the outsiders in this story, isn't it? The Roman wife has a dream. The centurion makes the great confession. The women are the ones watching from a distance.
It really is. The religious insiders are completely blind. The desperate outsiders see the truth.
So Jesus is dead. The darkness lifts, but the sorrow settles in. We move to this last part, the tomb and the seal.
This is the setup for the future. A man named Joseph of Arimathea steps in. He's a rich man, a secret disciple, and he asks Pilate for the body.
Which was incredibly risky, wasn't it? To publicly identify yourself with an executed state criminal.
Very risky. You are aligning yourself with a man who was just convicted of treason against Rome. But Joseph is done hiding. He takes the body, wraps it in clean linen, notice the respect there compared to the stripping by the soldiers, and lays it in his own new tomb, one hewn in the rock.
And he rolls a great stone in front of the door.
But the story doesn't end with a quiet funeral. The chief priests are paranoid. They are actually, in a weird way, smarter than the disciples at this point.
Verse 62. The next day, which is the Sabbath, mind you, they go and gather before Pilate. And they say, Sir, we have remembered that while he was still living, that deceiver said, after 3 days I will arise.
Isn't that ironic? The disciples have fled. They're hiding, confused, heartbroken. They seem to have completely forgotten the promise of resurrection. They're just busy mourning. But the enemies,
The enemies remember the theology perfectly.
perfectly, they call him that deceiver, and they're terrified that the disciples will steal the body and fake a miracle.
So they ask for security. And Pilate gives this very famous, almost dismissive order in verse 65. You have a guard. Go and make it as secure as you know how.
As secure as you know how. That sounds like a challenge.
It is. So they went and they secured the grave, sealing the stone and setting a guard.
Let's just think about that image for a second. You have a massive rock, probably weighing a ton or more. You have an official Roman seal, which means if you break it, you face the full wrath of the empire. And you have armed soldiers standing watch.
They literally tried to lock God in a box.
They put a government seal on the author of life. They thought that with enough stone, enough wax, and enough swords, they could keep the I am silent forever.
But they were wrong.
Oh, they were spectacularly wrong. They were trying to hold back the ocean with a piece of paper.
So let's bring this all together. We've covered a lot of ground today in this timely word. We started with the I am in the burning bush, the God who speaks and delivers. We moved to the I am who is silent before Pilate, the God who submits and suffers.
We saw the Bridegroom of Blood in Exodus, where blood was necessary to save the leader. And we saw the field of blood in Matthew, where the leader's blood was spilled to save the world, to buy a place even for strangers.
We saw Job clinging to his integrity while the wicked are hissed away. And we saw Jesus, the only man of perfect integrity, taking that hissing and that storm upon himself.
And finally, we saw the death that tore the veil, the silence that led to the shout of the centurion.
So what does this mean for us practically? For the listener who's driving to work right now or sitting at home, what do we do with this?
It means that when you feel forsaken, you're not alone in that feeling. Jesus felt that forsakenness in a way we never will, so that you wouldn't have to be truly abandoned. And when you see injustice, when the Barabbas of the world goes free and the innocent suffer, you know that God isn't blind to it. He hasn't ignored it. He has stepped into the middle of it.
And it means that God's silence isn't his absence.
Exactly. Jesus was silent before Pilate. But in that silence, he was working the greatest miracle in the history of the universe. So just because God isn't thundering from a bush in your life right now doesn't mean he isn't moving.
That is a timely word for sure. We often want the fire, but sometimes what we get is the silence. But the silence is doing the heavy lifting.
And remember the 3 days. The priests remembered it. We should too.
Which brings us to the end of our time, but not the end of the story. Because right now, in our narrative, it's Saturday. The tomb is sealed. The soldiers are bored, standing guard. The disciples are weeping in a locked room. The story seems over. The deceiver is dead.
But remember Exodus. Moses had that staff. When he threw it on the ground, it looked like a dead stick. But when he picked it up again, it was the power of God.
And right now, Jesus looks like a dead stick. He's in the ground.
But the chief priests, they forgot one thing about the rocks.
What's that?
When Jesus died, the rocks split. The earth shook.
Why?
The earth didn't shake just to say goodbye. The rocks split because something was trying to get out. The very nature of the I am is self-existence. You can bury it, you can seal it, you can guard it. But life, by its very definition, cannot be held by death.
The I am is getting ready to speak again. And when he does, no stone is going to stay in place.
Next time, we're going to find out why the I am can never stay dead and what happens when that Roman seal is broken.
I cannot wait. This has been your timely word.